Okay, welcome everyone. Holding by Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirke Avos, as is known. We're in chapter 2, Mishna 13, part 9. All right, that's what we're holding. Again, welcome everyone. Holding by Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirke Avos, chapter 2, Mishna 13. We're in part 9. And the Mishnah said, we're still in the middle here. The Mishnah said, go out and discern what's the proper way a man should cling. Rabbi Eliezer said a good eye. Rabbi Yeshua says a good friend. Right? So we spoke last week about this idea of rebuke. Right? And what the obligation is in giving rebuke. Even if, let's say, for sure the other person's not going to listen, right? Doesn't matter. Could be, you still have an obligation, right? Still may, it's a complicated thing, but people use the excuse, say, well, the person's not going to listen, going to make matters worse. It could be, but sometimes it doesn't matter, right? Sometimes, someone will say, you have to say this is okay. Right, you have to say intermarriage is good, or you can't be homophobic, you can't be against homosexuals. So that you have to defend. That you can say the Torah says otherwise. Not a personal thing, right? We don't hate non-Jews over here. They're even if they're married to Jews, right? It's not the non-Jews' fault, right? Totally not the non-Jews' fault, right? The Jew's going to pay the price. No question, absolutely no question. But, there are halachas here. There are, many halachas that have to do with how to give rebuke. And when you're obligated, or maybe when you're not, right? But that's what a good friend does. A good friend is not necessarily a yes person, right? In other words, a good friend is not just going to, let you spiral down, in a negative way. They may give you a rebuke. They'll say, listen, this is bad. It's bad for you. It's bad for it's bad for your family. Different things now. That person may not want to listen, may not want to hear it. Right? But what's their goal? What is the goal of someone giving a rebuke? Not just saying what you're doing is wrong. That's easy. Right? We can find 100 problems, with people saying that, yeah, you do this wrong, you do that wrong, you do the other thing wrong, etc. But the goal is, or the idea is that a person can want to do it for the sake of heaven, meaning that why you give a rebuke? If you didn't care, you wouldn't give him a rebuke or her rebuke. Why would you, if a person didn't care in general, person doesn't care in general, they're not going to have anything to do with you, right? Totally not going to have anything to do with you. Now, so someone who says, they ask, well, I work with lesbians, non-Jews, right? Do you have an obligation to rebuke them? Well, that's the problem, right? The Torah says, we mentioned last week, the Torah makes clear in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, the Torah says, "Ocheach tochiach es amisecha." There's an obligation to rebuke amisecha. Amisecha means your people. Right? So that would mean a Jew has got an obligation to rebuke a Jew. Does a Jew have an obligation to rebuke a non-Jew? Now, simple explanation, the verse is no. That's simple explanation. If someone, keeps dogging me saying, yeah, we're going to be out there, chastising, and saying all kinds of things against Christians, right? Against pagans. I don't know, who says that's my job, right? I got enough things to deal with. Who says that's my obligation? According to that, I'd have an obligation outside every church, pick up, put up signs, nearby, and basically saying, you're all going to fry in hell forever. You have to look into the no-hide laws. Right, but who says it's my obligation? So, What's the argument the other way? We'll get to the answer in a second, this question. But what's the argument the other way? The argument they'll say, well, aren't you a light into nations? You're a light into nations, right? You're a light into nations. Okay, Torah says God chose us, we chose him. So we're a light into nations. Very good. Now, even if the Torah says I'm a light into nations, meaning the Jewish people are not light into nations, who says I have an obligation to draw non-Jews closer to their mitzvahs? To rebuke them, who says I have an obligation? The Torah says clear, rebuke your own people. Right? If a non-Jew, comes to you, it's a different issue. Right? Comes to you as a Jew. Right? That might be a different issue. Right? They come to you, right? Like this case. When they say, well, I've chosen my life. This is my life. Don't be homophobic. So you say, it's not a personal thing. I believe in God. I believe in the Bible. The Bible says you're not allowed to. Well, they say, where does it say? It's a good question. It's not direct. Homosexuality is forbidden. Right? Leviticus chapter 18. Right? That 100% is a total prohibition. Where do you learn out lesbianism is forbidden? You learn it out because the Torah says you're not allowed to go after the actions of the Egyptians. So what does that mean? What does that mean? The Egyptians were known to be the most immoral people. So what does it mean? Right? So commentaries tell us it means this. That's one of the things they did wrong. Right? So you might tell me maybe it's not a Torah prohibition, or maybe, it's learned out from another verse, but it's not direct. Right? Some people, have an issue with oral law. They'll say, the rabbis made this up. The rabbis say it's forbidden. Well, Torah says in the book of Deuteronomy, right? There's an obligation to listen to the priests in every generation. Not only listen to them, if they say right is left, left is right, you got to listen to them, right? Not only that, if you don't listen to them, you're liable for a death penalty. Now that's pretty severe, right? Not every transgression is a Jew, or a non-Jew liable for death penalty. There are a number of things non-Jews, as part of the no-hide laws, be liable for a death penalty. You don't have to warn them, right? You see, a Jew sees a non-Jew bowing down to an idol, shoot him on the spot. If you wouldn't get caught, that wouldn't be an issue. Then, it's a different issue, right? That's it's a different issue. But what about murder? They murder someone in cold blood. Can't kill them. If you saw them do it, you kill them. Right? That's death penalty. Right? Immorality, death penalty. But not everything the no-hide law is death penalty. Totally not. Many things could be a Torah prohibition, could be a rabbinic prohibition, but not everything out of the laws. Maybe there are 60, 65, 70 laws of no-hide laws, but a lot of them are not death penalty. Now, based on that, so you can say, well, a non-Jew doesn't have an obligation to give rebuke. Right? They don't have an obligation. If you're a Jew, it might be a different issue. But in this case, let's say they come to you, you work with them, they get married, right? They know your stance, they give you a hard time. So you say, listen, I believe in the Torah, I believe in God, right? Or you can say, I believe in the Bible. The Bible says it's forbidden. Forget about which verse this that. Let's argument's sake, you say it's forbidden. 100% it's forbidden. They can be nice people. That has nothing to do with anything. Right? Explain to someone, right? And the next question is, if a non-Jew knows intermarriage is a huge sin, can they still marry a Jew? No. They're not allowed to marry a Jew. Really, the prohibition's on the Jew. Jew's not allowed to marry a non-Jew. Now, if a non-Jew ends up marrying a Jew, let's say, secular Jew, doesn't care, no conversion, no nothing, is the Jew allowed to marry the non-Jew? No, 100% forbidden. Is there a prohibition in the no-hide laws for non-Jews to marry Jews? No, not a prohibition at all. All right. It could be though. It could be if they marry a Jew, they might be over Torah prohibition of putting stumbling block. in front of someone. All right, that's total prohibition. Not allowed to put a stumbling block. And there are a lot of ramifications for that. All right, I'll give one example. I'll give a few examples. One is, let's say someone took on the Nazirite vow. Not allowed to take on the Nazirite vow today. We don't have a temple in Jerusalem. We can't bring sacrifices, right, etc. So if a person made a vow to be a Nazirite, they're stuck. So they can't drink wine, can't drink grape juice, can't eat grapes, can't go to a cemetery, right? I'm sure that's going to bother a lot of people. Can't go to a cemetery, right? So they're stuck. They're 100% stuck. Now let's say, you're hanging out with a Nazirite, and you're having some wine, you're having some grape juice. Now what happens? It's forbidden for them to drink. So by you having it there, that's putting a stumbling block. You're not giving it to them directly. It's true. They could get it from anywhere else, but that's a problem. Shouldn't drink in front of them. Right? Another example. Someone asks you for directions. They don't have ways. You don't have ways. Right? But you think you know how to go. So you give them directions. Well, what's the problem? Made a mistake. Innocent mistake. You told them, okay, you go straight. Second light, you take a right. You keep going, then take a left, whatever. But what's the problem? We made a mistake. So better to say, I don't know, and I'm not sure. Because if you say you're not sure, you're not putting a stumbling block in front of them. In this case, you're putting a stumbling block. You did it by accident. You didn't have intention to mess them up, okay? Right? You didn't have intention, very good. But in the end, that's what happened. So maybe you tell me, putting stumbling block in front of somebody is doing it on purpose. But if you do it, you did it by accident. So let's say it's only a rabbinic prohibition. Okay? Still forbidden. Right? So in this case, a non-Jew, could be putting a stumbling block in front of a Jew by marrying them. A Jew, 100% forbidden. There's nothing to talk about. Right? Number prohibition. Nothing to talk about. Did a non-Jew do anything wrong? Non-Jew didn't do anything wrong over here. I had someone once tell me, this guy was into marrying, and he said, they know that, I give these classes, for the sake of conversion or, no high class or whatever. So the person said, my wife's not convertible. Right? In other words, she's never going to convert. My answer was, she doesn't have to. It's not her problem, it's your problem. It's 100% your problem, not her problem. Right? She's not allowed to, she's not allowed to marry a non-Jew. Sorry, she's not allowed to marry a Jew. A Jew's not allowed to marry a non-Jew. But even if a non-Jew married a Jew, maybe you tell me it's a rabbinic prohibition of putting a stumbling block, or maybe it's even a Torah prohibition, right? So that might be an issue. But technically speaking, she didn't do anything wrong, right? I mean, it's forbidden. She shouldn't do it, right? But it's much more severe on the other side. On the other side, it's much more severe, right? Either case, if it's a guy or a girl, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Once they transgress, right? And they'll transgress every time they're intimate. That's a problem. Again, is it the non-Jew's fault? No. Is that putting a stumbling block? Very well could be. Very well could be, right? So now, someone backs you in a corner. Get back to the original question. Someone backs you a corner, and they want recognition. They want validation. Let's say better. They want validation. They want a person to say that's okay. That's what they want. Now, you can't do that. Even as a non-Jew, it's forbidden for non-Jews. Right? It's one of the things that's forbidden for non-Jews also. So how can you say it? You can't. So you have to be nice. You're not just going to hammer them, but but you have to tell them, listen, it goes against what I believe. Nothing personal. They may go berserk. They may call you names. They may curse at you. They may say, I don't care about the Bible. I don't care about this. Your God can go to hell, different thing. Okay, let them say whatever they want. What did my Rebbe say? Go eat kugel. You don't like it? You can eat kugel. Okay? You don't know how to say it's okay. Right? I had someone, a friend of mine I went to yeshiva with, saw him on a plane coming back to Israel. And I said, oh, what are you doing in America? He said, oh, I was at a wedding. My sister got married. I said, oh, mazel tov. So he said, well, not exactly. She married a non-Jew. So I said, okay, you're an Orthodox Jew. You're an Orthodox Jew. How could you go to the wedding? He said, no. He said, you're right, but everybody knew I was there under protest. So I said, so you're eating a kosher food under protest. You were dancing the horror under protest. That's not under protest. You're there. I can be part of it, right? Probably the single biggest problem today, in Judaism today, isn't the marriage. Some places 60%, some places 70%, other places could be higher. Serious problem. That comes with lack of education or whatever, the whole story. The whole story, not really the point here, right? But that's a pretty serious thing. And if you take a survey of people, identified with the synagogue, and you ask them, according to the Bible, is a Jew allowed to marry a non-Jew? Yes or no? No buts. They'll say no, but, all right, there are no buts. If they're unaffiliated, they'll say it doesn't matter. They'll say it doesn't matter. So again, for a non-Jew, technically speaking, shouldn't be any problem. Shouldn't be any problem. But if this lesbian comes to you, and they want 100% justification, can't do that. Now, someone told me, I find this incredulous to believe, but someone swore by it saying, that's discrimination. So if you don't acknowledge it, you're discriminating, you get fired. I can think of a lot of things a person can get fired for. Their opinion and, where they hold religiously, I don't necessarily think that's one of them. Unless they're a terrorist. Then they find out they're a terrorist. Okay. So that I can understand. They want to protect the employees. That I can understand. You do something egregious, it's not a warning over here, they fire you. Okay. Right? Something like this, the person should get fired. Someone told me, yeah. Because you have to be as open-minded until your brains fall on the floor. Right? That's what you got to do. Right? They swear by it. They say, I've seen it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to say it's okay. If you don't, they have a right to fire you. So my question was, so what happened? This was in Canada. So I said, what happened to religious freedom? So you'll never win. You can go to court, you'll never win. That's what they told me. And I don't know if that's true or not. I find it very hard to believe. But, who knows? We live in a messed up world. Totally messed up world. Right? So, do you have an obligation to make a big stink about it? I wouldn't say so. If they come to you and they want validation, you can't give it. Right? You don't have to walk up and say, I'm against what you do. Again, it depends on the circumstance. Right? They'll be more hostile. They're not going to listen, etc. But sometimes you might have to. Right? In a case where they throw you on the defense, they put you on the defense, and they want acknowledgement, can't give it. Now, what if someone, let's say you're, you have a bakery. Two guys come in, two women come in and say, we want a cake for marriage. Why don't you make this fancy cake, etc., which you normally do, right? That's on the list of things you sell. Problem is, you're making a cake for an abomination, right? For what the Torah says an abomination. Then you say, okay, lesbians that's not called an abomination per se, but it says don't go in the ways of the Egyptians. Not a good thing. 100% is not a good thing. Very good, right? So now you're allowed to make that cake. So there was a case a number of years ago, when Mr. Obama came up with his law, same-sex marriage is legal, according to the Supreme Court. There's a medrash, I'm just going to throw this out there. There's a medrash that says that any nation, let's repeat that, any nation that sanctions same-sex marriages with a document, with a marriage document, right? That place will get utterly destroyed. Destroyed. So in other words, what's that document? A marriage certificate. That's what it is. So the medrash says any place that does that, they're in trouble. Right? They definitely get destroyed. So there was a clerk, county clerk in America. Two guys come in. I think it was two guys. Two guys come in. She's a paper pusher, right? She registers these things and those other things as well. She's like, I'm not doing this. She's like, goes against everything I stand for. It goes against my religion. I'm not doing it. Right? So there's a whole thing. You have no choice. That's your obligation. Go find somewhere else to work. Right? Why is that discrimination? Then there's separation church and state. What happened to being open-minded over here? What happened to my view? My view is not worth spit. No. Go ask a Democrat. Go ask a Democrat in America. You hold not like that. They don't care. They don't care what your opinion is. They want to ram it down your throat. You'll say the Republicans do the same thing. Okay. Right? Maybe they're not much better. Probably. Right? Probably. So they speak at each other, not to each other. Right? No respect. No respect of values. You go against what they stand for, what their values are, you're toast. You're toast. I've been the subject of, of attacks because, I came out and said, this is wrong. I said, well, that's your belief, and that's old school, and that's it. This is someone, much older than me saying this, and people that are much older are, it's like their parents or grandparents were religious. So it's like, people do what they want, so to speak, and that's their choice, and that's old school. So I said, okay, but, a lot of people do it. You get 60%, 70%, this and that. Okay. Did they hear the arguments? I convinced them. No. They said they're more traditional, but doesn't matter. People are going to do what they do. Right. And obviously we've spoken about this many times. They'll say blood is thicker than water. It's family. Can't come out against it. Why not? What would you rather do? Look bad in the eyes of God or look bad in the eyes of men? If you look bad in the eyes of God, you're in trouble. You're in serious trouble. It depends what it is, obviously, but you got an opportunity to stick up for Torah. To say what the Torah viewpoint is, no matter what the repercussions are. Right? Chofetz Chaim says in the laws of Lashon Hara, person works for someone, and they ask you for certain information. That information, let's say you're not allowed to give it to Lashon Hara. But the boss pushes you and pushes you. And the boss finally says, listen, if you do not give me this information, then I'm going to fire you. So what does the Chofetz Chaim say? What's the halacha? The halacha is you got to be fired. That's the halacha. You got to lose your job. Because you're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara over here. Right? You see that, by Yehuda and Tamar. Tamar doesn't outrightly say, right? It might be a little bit different case, but she doesn't outrightly say when she's pregnant, he did it. What did she say? She said, whoever owns these things is the one who did it. So now everyone understood who did it. Very good. So what are we going out from that? Better to jump into a fiery furnace than embarrass someone in public. But you're going to tell how many people do it, and it's common and different. Okay, not saying it's right. Someone Rabbeinu Yonah says in Shari Tshuva, in the gate to repentance, Rabbeinu Yonah brings down that if you embarrass someone in public, you lose your portion of the world to come. Now, that is an unbelievable novel idea. Why? Because if you embarrass someone in public, the Gemara says, person turns white, then they turn red. Right? Red meaning like blood. They're totally embarrassed. Right? So it's similar to murder. Is it murder? No. Anyone's ever been embarrassed? Yeah. They want to walk under some rock, be in some cave. They want to be somewhere else. But you get embarrassed in front of everybody? Yeah. It's a very severe thing. So it's a horrific thing. Horrific thing. Right? But it's not murder. It's not like you took a person and you threw him off a cliff. That's murder. Shot him in the head. Doesn't matter. However you killed him. Right? But this is pretty severe. It's like murder. Okay. Right? The Rambam and others do not say that if you embarrass someone in public, you lose your portion of the world to come. He doesn't say that. Other rabbinical authorities don't say that. Right? This is an incredible idea. This is an unbelievable, novel idea, everybody says. right? He's telling you that is worse than murder. Murder, you don't lose your portion of the world to come. But if you embarrass someone in public, that's 10 times worse than murder itself. It's not murder. And then in the normal scheme of things, it's not normal. It's not murder. It's like murder, right? Again, anyone who's been embarrassed, they understand how severe it is. No one wants to be part of that. True, right? But technically speaking, it's not murder. No matter what you feel, it's not murder. So if it's not murder, why do you lose your portion of the world to come? It's pretty severe. That's a novelty, Rabbeinu Yonah. Not everyone agrees. Right? It makes sense why great rabbinic authorities disagree. Because if you're going to tell me murder itself, you still have a portion of the world to come. Obviously, if you repent, you're going to tell me something similar to murder. If you repent or whatever, you lose your portion of the world to come. A huge novelty. Huge novelty over here. Right? So, if you have to give rebuke, you have to say, listen, if they push you in a corner and they say, I want acknowledgement, you have to acknowledge me. This is my lifestyle. Okay, that's your lifestyle. Torah says it's forbidden. The Bible says it's forbidden. So you have to tell them, this is not a personal thing. Right? And I believe in the laws of the Bible. I believe in the God of Israel. The God of Israel says you're not allowed to. Period. You're not allowed to. You don't have to go into it. Maybe it's rabbinic, whatever. It doesn't matter. It says it's forbidden. Now, that can cause a lot of problems. Right? They call you names. They can say other things. Again, you want to diffuse it to the best of your ability by saying this is not a personal affront. But you know what? That doesn't always help. It doesn't always help. The only question is, damage control. Take someone, let's say, desecrate Shabbos. They desecrate Shabbos. They don't know anything. Doesn't matter. Maybe they know a little bit. But, they desecrate Shabbos in public. Are you allowed to answer amen to the blessings? No. You have to give them any honors? At a wedding or other things? No. But they're going to say, I deserve the honor, right? They're going to say, I'm the grandfather. I deserve. So all things being equal, that's true. But what can you do? This is a technical issue here. You get the status, a Jew like that has the status of a non-Jew. They can repent. But at this point, they have the status of a non-Jew. And it's a pretty severe prohibition. Pretty severe prohibition, that penalty. So that's true. How can you give them an honor? Someone is intermarried. Can you call him up to the Torah? Can't. Why not? What's the blessing you make? What's the blessing a male will make when he's called up to the Torah? You say, God, Lord of all blessing, King of the world. You say, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ami. You've chosen us from among the nations. So if you've chosen us from among the nations, how can you make that blessing? Blessing in vain. He's going to say the person doesn't know any better. He thinks it's okay. He uses Webster's 8th definition of why it's okay. It doesn't matter. There are some things that are egregious, that are horrific. Can't whitewash it. They're going to say, you say that, you're not going to be very popular. Okay. So go to another synagogue. Like I would say, if I was a rabbi of a synagogue and two homosexuals walk in, right? Two homosexuals walk in. They want to pray there. They want to come there, right? But you got to lay the law down. Listen, you want to make a kiddush for whatever. We're not going to allow you. You're never going to be called to the Torah. You're never going to get any honors. But you're welcome to come. You're welcome to come. They may choose to go elsewhere. I get it, right? But how in the world can you say it's okay? If they tell you, listen, we're working on it, we don't want to be this way, we're getting help, okay, it's a different issue. That's a different issue. Right? But, if they're not interested in change, you say, well, why are they coming to your synagogue in the first place? I get it. But at the same time, guess what? You can't say it's okay. You're not allowed to say it's okay. You might offend them. Okay. Right? If you rebuke someone privately, someone asks, and they get embarrassed, you got to be careful. Some will say we should never even rebuke anyone because we don't know how to. certainly in this generation, we don't know how to. But even if they get embarrassed, and you did everything you could not to embarrass them, right? And they get embarrassed. Is that your fault? Not necessarily. Right? Even though Lashon Hara, you're doing it for their interest. You're doing it for the sake of heaven and all that. You're not going public with it. So if they, if they get upset or they get embarrassed, I don't think it's your fault. Why should it be your fault? There's a whole question. If a person says the truth and then someone blasphemes using God's name, right? Let's say, well, they do something else. They speak about God, they curse, whatever it is, because they don't like what you said. Is that putting a stumbling block in front of them? No. Why not? Why is that putting a stumbling block? The reason is because you don't have to worry what they're going to say, what they're not going to say. That's their choice. But what did you do? You 100%, you stuck up for Torah. Right? This is what the Torah says. This is what the Bible says. Right? So I don't care, this, that, and they start cursing left and right. Did you just transgress? No. Didn't transgress anything. Right? Let's say. So that's it doesn't matter what they say. But if you answer, and they could say this, that, the other thing, isn't that putting a stumbling block? No. You don't have to worry about that. It's not an issue. Right? Why not? Because who says I have to worry what their reaction is going to be. Again, you want to be careful. But if you tell somebody that's intermarried that it's wrong, they're going to be upset, most likely. It's interesting. Everyone will say it's okay except for you. Right? So everyone says it's okay. They don't care because you say it's not okay. I have to worry what they're going to say. Who cares? Let them go eat kugel. Doesn't matter what they say. It's relevant what they say. But you're telling them, and that could be the reaction. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. Because you're telling what the Torah says. When you say what the Torah says, you never lose. You're going to say, but, what about this case? What about this case? You just lost your job. You lost your job because you refused to speak Lashon Hara. Right? I spoke out against something. I was in South America. I also lost my job. Right? That was my obligation. My Rebbe told me. Okay. Right? I was in a bad position at that point. Because then they refused to give me compensation. Unless I signed a document saying I would never speak against anyone in the community. You know what they call that in the vernacular? It's called extortion. So you're going to say, aren't these religious Jews? Yeah, how religious are they? A person giving rabbinic supervision to non-Jews that watch wine. That wine, you got to flush down the toilet. Right? So I'm not making money from it. Someone else said he is making money from it. How can you do that? It's a well-known thing. Rabbi said, you got to call it in. I called it in. I didn't go as far as I should have for different reasons. Right? But that's what happened. Now, do you ever lose from such a thing? That's a minor setback. You know what? You stick up for God, you don't lose. When a door is closed, right? This is Torah philosophy here. This might be good. My new group I'm going to set up about, how to deal with pain, whether it's physical pain, spiritual pain, deal with, setbacks, livelihood issues, all kinds of things. So doesn't that call into your belief in God? Never did. You know why it never did? This is before I learned Chovos Levavos. Before I learned duties of the heart. Why didn't it call in any question? Because I did what my Rebbe said to do. I did what he said to do. It's okay. So I couldn't stay in this place anymore. I had to leave. Ended up back in America. Other things happened. Right? Eventually, things open up here, there, whatever it was. Right? It wasn't easy by any stretch. What are you going to do? Everyone's afraid of this person. What? Shouldn't say anything? Selling wine all over the world. With good rabbinic supervision on it. I don't have an obligation to say anything. Everyone's afraid. So what? Rabbi's not afraid of anything except God himself. He once told me that. He said, I'm not worried what people do. I'm not worried what people say. I'm worried about what God thinks. I'm worried about if I don't do the right thing, what he's going to say. What are the ramifications? You're gonna say this is a hard thing though. You're stuck in the middle of you're stuck in somewhere. What are you gonna do? Not only that, they're not willing to pay you. The boots. So now you're stuck, you got no money. I mean, I had some money from something else, but okay. They're not gonna pay you. They owe you compensation. Rabbi gave me advice what to do. Whatever, not the point here. I got compensated. They did compensate me. And I left. They were very glad to get rid of me. Very glad. Right? But at the same time, you're going to say, but, you didn't get the right advice. That was the right advice. You got to warn people. I just didn't take it as far as I should have for different reasons. But the point is, isn't it true? Right? Isn't it true? You keep Torah mitzvahs. It's not going to be. How in the world can it be? You got slammed over here. Totally slammed. So the doors open up. Eventually. Didn't happen all at once. Definitely didn't happen all at once. The slow, drawn-out process. So, you don't lose over here. If a door is slammed shut, other doors open. The only question is, when? When is one of those doors going to open? Could be immediate. Could take time. But you're going to say, but in the meantime, so I was getting compensated, okay. So I was looking for a job, right? I was looking for, an outreach job, and I got slammed left and right, different organizations, right? I'll just flush this out a little bit, right? It's wow, you get all these, you got this resume, you're long, you've done this, you've done that. I had people tell me, I want to take someone younger, I don't have to pay a lot, and someone's not going to be better than me. That's what some people said. Because I'm not interested in being better than anyone. I want a job and what I'm good at. I got slammed left and right. Slammed left and right. That's all I get involved in real estate. Right? But I couldn't find anything. Right? A lot of places also in the middle of nowhere and no Jewish education. Right? So yeah, I had a resume A long, didn't help me. Just the opposite. People were afraid. Totally afraid. Okay. So eventually things started to turn. Right? Then I veered off in the way I learned how to do it. And then the market crashed. 2008. I couldn't stand dealing with buyers, dealing with sellers, people trying to circumvent me for a little bit of money and different things. And the market crashed, 2008. Right? All the, what do you call it? All the, what's the word? Mortgages. Right? Whole thing. Now people can't get mortgages. You can't do this. Whatever. So I'm like, this is great. What am I supposed to do now? Now I can do this anywhere. I just did it from my house. Never saw any properties, different things. I can do it anywhere. So a friend of mine, came by, happened to be in America. And he said, okay, if you can do this anywhere, and you just got slammed, why don't you just come back? Why don't you go back to Israel? Right? So I did. I made Aliyah, became a Zionist, because they paid for my flight, whatever. I came back. I'm not gonna say it was easy, it wasn't easy. I did go back into real estate a little bit, when I was here, but in any case, other doors open. If that wouldn't have, I'll say like this, right? We have to look and see how God runs the world. But when you're going through things, it's very hard to see. It's very, very hard to see. So I said, okay, I'll go back to Israel. That's where I was really happy anyway. So I'll go back, I learn in the morning. I'll still give still giving classes. So give these classes. I'll try and work out other things. And not everything worked out the way it should have. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So the place I'm living in now is where I am now, not the same apartment, whatever. And two of my kids marry, two families, live one building apart. Same street. Now I'm going to ask you, what are the odds of that? I'll take out my calculator right now. I got tossed around left and right. I end up coming back to this community, which I've never been in. My wife did a pilot trip, this, that. Checks out for, we'll stay for a year. We'll see what happens. So I've been here now the last 14 years. Starting 14 years. 14 and a quarter years, let's say. So now, this happened. This thing happened in South America. South America, I get to America. In America, I get involved in giving these classes, right? Almost by accident, different ways. right? Couldn't find what I wanted to do. I get involved in real estate. Okay. And then what happens? The market crashed. You know what my answer was? I'm like, are you kidding? I'm dealing with these sellers and buyers I can't stand. Everyone's trying to, squeeze you out of money, this and that. And now you shut down the whole system? You shut down this whole system. What's going on? What in the world's going on? A friend of mine happened to be in America. Tells me, what are you doing here? Forget about it. The system shut down. You can do it anywhere anyway. Wait for the system to come back, so to speak, and get out of here. I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. I never thought I would go back. Figured, I go save the world. I got slammed. Left, right, and center. Totally slammed. So I'm saying one of the offshoots of what happened with these are all individual events, right? I opened up my big mouth in South America, which my Rebbe told me to do. Got fired. Okay. Ended up in the States, look for a job in outreach. Couldn't find it. Look for this, look for that. End up getting involved in real estate. Things are better, a little bit better. And then things got hard, whatever. Then the market crashed. What happened after that? I ended up back in Israel. What happened a number of years later? Right? What happened, let's say, 10 and 12 years later? What happened 10 years later? So one daughter got engaged, funny thing. And someone was sitting next to her. I didn't even know his name. Someone was sitting next to it, where I pray on Shabbos. So I see this guy at a wedding. I'm just going to show you how divine providence works. And you would never think this. I see him at a wedding. I'm like, what are you doing here? So, because the person getting married, I know the parents 20 years, more. No, more, since I'm married. Because, his uncle and I used to learn together, same place for a number of years. So I said, what are you doing at this wedding? He said, I'm related. I'm like, get out of here. What do you mean you're related? He says, I'm related. It's my name. I'm like, my father is so-and-so. I'm like, get out of here. He goes, what are you doing here? So I said, I know the groom before you were born. Kind of funny, kind of ironic, right? Next thing, my daughter's starting to go out. So she went a few times, didn't be the right one. So I had a list of three people in this yeshiva who to check out. So I put him at top of the list. I know the family. Done a little bit of checking, but I know the family. Many years. And so what happened? It went. It totally went. Happily married 4 years later, 4.5 years. Pretty amazing, right? So now, 2 years later, my oldest daughter started this group for girls who needed, strength and emunah and, belief in God. So she started once a week, having different rabbis speak. Now she started her own seminary, a few years ago, have different tracks, whatever it is, right? So who was one of the main speakers? Someone who taught at Aish Torah. Now, it just happens to be, I never, my wife knows his wife. I never really came in contact. He prays somewhere else. I never see him, right? I don't see him on the bus, usually different things, but okay. So anyway, before class, he gave a class twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, something like that. So before, girls started showing up. So he started speaking to my daughter. He said, maybe someone for my son. She says, tell me about your son. And so I got the perfect one, my sister. Now I have to understand, my daughter went through all kinds of different things, at a very, bumpy ride, as an adolescent, different things. And then one thing led to another, started this group, all this, and she made the match for her sister, so that was 3.5 years ago. 3.5 years ago. So now, last year, my daughter's starting to date. And she got a friend from grade school that, they're still in contact. And, they used to walk around the neighborhood a lot and different things. They went to different schools. When they were in elementary school, together. Anyway, they're going for a walk. So, just my daughter, are you dating? And she says, yeah, I'm starting, we're looking. She's like, what about my brother? She's like, well, what about it? What about him? Now I know the family. I know the family very well. The father used to be the administrator of the yeshiva where I pray. So, he used to sit right behind me. So he always used to ask me, he's like, I got so many boys, you got so many girls. Like, don't you have one for, don't you have one for me? So, okay. We checked them out a little bit, knew the family. They went out. That's it. It went. Next thing I know, I'm making an engagement. I know all his brothers. And, I see them in shul. I used to schmooze with them, different things. And now we're like one family. It's unbelievable. My son, my youngest son, happens to be very good friends. With my son-in-law's youngest brother. They don't go to the same school. But my other daughter that got married, I'm just throwing this out there. So my youngest son, was his best friend in his class. This youngest son of the family. Now again, what are the odds? What are the odds of such a thing? Now these families lived one building apart, and they knew each other very well. So we're at the wedding, before everything started. So my other daughter's father-in-law, was there. I got the photographer. I was like, you got to get a picture. We got to get a picture, all three of us. It's unbelievable. We know each other well. It's like unbelievable. So you're going to say, okay, Rabbi, what's the connection here? Where are the dots connected? You know what I'm going to say? I have no idea. But I'm telling you, this happened in South America. My daughter went through a difficult time, whatever it was. I ended up coming back to Israel. The odds, all kinds of other things. I thought it was a joke. I was like, I'm involved in real estate, not what I wanted to do. Okay, that's what I ended up doing. And God shuts it down. And the whole market crashes. I'm like, ha, very nice. Very funny. Like, what are you doing over here? I'm doing something I don't want. Okay. I got to do whatever you have to do. But at the end of the day, you got married in America that way. And I ended up living where I am. I didn't go back to where I was before because I had a lot of bad things happen there. Okay. So I ended up checking out this community. We ended up staying. That's what happened. Now you're going to say, where's the measure for measure? God runs the world. We have to remember every step along the way, God runs the world. God's in charge. Now, in this case, just telling about myself, when you speak about, how people get married, how they meet their soulmate, this and that, it's unbelievably miraculous. I don't think there's any question about it in general. Certainly in our circles, right? But the point is that you have all these individual things go on, seem to be absolutely random and difficult to boot. But at the end of the day, what did it accomplish? What it accomplished? I never made Aliyah when I was here. I was afraid of, getting drafted and all that. So, I was a good schnook every year or every 2 years, I renew my passports. And last time I did it, this woman, they eat like crusty nails for lunch, and breakfast, and she's screaming at me saying, how long do you think you can keep this up? And it's like she's stamping the passport. So I said, you know what? There's no law that says I can't. I'm like, come on, keep stamping. There's no law that says I can't. They don't like that. But whatever, they stamped it. So I never made Aliyah. All right? I never made Aliyah. So now I'm able to come back to Israel. Right? And they paid for all my tickets. Right? Good deal. They paid for all my tickets. Very good. So I'm saying, that's also a factor here. If I would have made Aliyah, I wouldn't have got any benefit. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the money to come, pay for 7 tickets. Certainly not. I certainly wasn't going to get money from anyone to help me. Right? That's for sure. But okay, it worked out. Totally worked out. Not to mention, I lost all the passports, 2 days before I'm supposed to travel. That's a whole nother story. Right? What's the point here? A lot of different things go on. You don't see any rhyme or reason why. You try this, slammed. Try that, slammed. Right? Doing things you don't want, slammed again. Okay, how many times can we get slammed? Not only that, my wife would say, here in Israel, the voltage is 220. Went to South America, I had to sell stuff here and buy the same things there, different voltage. Right? And so from there, I did the same thing. Same thing. I had to sell all that, when I left. I got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. Right? I ended up in America. So I had to buy things from scratch again. And then when we left, 2.5 years later, 3 years later, I did the same thing. Sell everything and then rebuy everything here. My wife said, how many times do you have to do this? How many times do we have to do this? It's a good question. Very good question. But okay, that's what happened. That's what happened. But if you look at it in the bigger scheme of things, you're going to say, wasn't it hard? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Didn't you go through trauma? Oh, yeah. Went through a heck of a lot of difficulty in so many different ways. So many different ways. If I would have known what I know now, I wouldn't have left in the first place. Okay? Too bad you did it. Great. I went to pursue my dream and got slammed all over the place. So many different ways. And I'm like, I got all this talent. Why can't I use it? The answer was very hard to hear. See, if you're successful, if you're not successful doing what you're doing, it's one thing. But if you've seen success and then it gets slammed shut, that was my question. Why? Could it be because I had an ego? It could be any number of things. Who knows? But the answer I heard? It was a very hard answer to hear. What was the answer? That's what God wants you to do now. You want to give your classes, you give them on the side. You got to do something else to put bread on the table. It's true. It's still very hard to hear. Still very, very hard to hear. But in the end, now you look back in hindsight, what happened? So I got 3 kids married off in the last 4 years. Unbelievable families. The families have merged together. It's really unbelievable. They say if you get along with the other side, it's a bonus, right? No guarantee. One family I know 30 years. I mean, not as well, but I know other people in the family. The parents I know. The grandparents I know. On both sides, because we used to see them at different things, right? So when we made the Chaim in my house, so my son-in-law's father asked us, "How do you know my family again?" I'm like, "What are you kidding?" I'm like, "I know your brother 30 years. We used to learn together." Right. So one of the Shever brothers, one of these, fancy meals after they got married, and I saw my son-in-law's grandparents from his aunt. She's the one actually who made the match. Right. So I said, see, now we're like family. It's like you're always like family. Now it's official. That's how close we were. Right. Now what are the odds of that? It's also pretty small. Right. And so the family my daughter just got married to 6, 7 months ago. I know the family very well. Very, very well. The joke is that 3 out of the 4 parents, went to Ivy League schools. My wife was the odd one out. Even though the father of my son-in-law, he didn't finish his degree. But okay. Right. I know the family very well. It's like, the odds of that are very small. Very, very small. Right? What's the point? Let's not forget the point is. The point is, when you look at the bigger picture, the pieces fit like an unbelievable puzzle. Unbelievable puzzle. Now, does that mean all the pieces fit and everything went smooth? Hell no. I'm not going to go into all the difficulty. It was hard in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. But in the end, through all that, I end up leaving. I come back here. It wasn't easy here either. Right? But at the end of the day, they say, you get 2 strikes against you if you want to marry off kids. Right? One of them is you didn't grow up religious. So that's already a knock. Right? For better or for worse, it's a knock. You got some people that are religious from birth, they won't deal with you. They're not interested. They don't want to have any issues with like grandparents not religious and there's all kinds of things. Okay. Right? So that's one barrier. And what's the other barrier? Money. Right? Are you going to support? You're going to buy them an apartment, this, that. So I had 2 things, 2 strikes. 2 strikes against me. Right? No money. Essentially no money. And, you have this lineage. So to speak. So now, a friend of mine years ago told me, he said, what's going to happen? Someone in this situation, let's say, you're marrying a family just like you, or families that don't care. And that's what happened, right? 3 out of the 4 families are very similar to us. An outlook, becoming religious, other than very, very similar. Very, very similar. So what you say, if the shoe fits, you wear it. That's what happens. Someone asked me, you got a whole bunch of girls. They said, how'd you marry a few girls and not buy an apartment? I think because I'm not putting myself in debt. I'm not selling any body parts to do it. People want to do it, good luck. I made a pledge for certain things, but not something that not something that I'm gonna put myself in the poorhouse. I don't even know how to do it, right? So someone said, but each wedding in and of itself was a miracle. It was an absolute miracle when it came to money, and so many different ways. It wasn't always pretty, but worked out. Because you see all these wedding halls, they're all filled. Every night they're filled when people are allowed to get married. How do people do it? Good question. Some people take out mortgages on their apartments, to do it. Some sell their apartments, other things, right? No one has it easy. It's hard enough to make a living here, right? But, to make a wedding, also to boot, that's why you get all these expenses. I had a friend of mine I learned with, made 3 weddings same year. No idea how he did it. He comes in every day with a smile. With a smile. I wish I was at that level, right? But my whole mentality here has changed. Totally changed. In a lot of different ways. You're going to say, but come on, don't you believe in all this? And you're giving all these classes and saying the same thing? Yeah. But that's the hitch in the heart also. You have to, I always tell my wife, if I listen to half the things I say, I look different. But something the other day, just last week, sort of snapped in my head. Totally snapped in my head. And just like took off the burden of so many different things. What did it? Because I said, God, you're the one in charge. And that has helped. Say it on a daily basis, many times. Could I be worse? Yeah, I could. Right? But Nachum Ish Gamzu was the Rebbe Akiva. Nachum Ish Gamzu said Gamzu l'toiv. He said everything is good. Rebbe Akiva said Kol David Rachmana l'toivav. Everything that God does is for the good. That's on a lower level. His Rebbe said everything is good, not just if it looks good, it's good. But you're gonna, someone's gonna say we're gonna cover this, right? And I'll make some videos or bring up other videos or, whatever. This new group we're gonna set up and say, well, I'm going through this and that. How can it be good? How can it be good? So it depends on perspective. Someone who's convinced. I'll give one example. Someone who's convinced that, they're in love with a certain person. So it doesn't work out. And they're heartbroken. Right? Let's say the other person jilts you. They say, no, you're very nice. Everything's good. I don't want to marry you. So that's heart-wrenching. But what if, years later, you go down a totally different path? If you go down a totally different path, then you see it wasn't meant to be. Totally not meant to be. How are you going to know that? You're not. You're not necessarily going to know that. Right? 100%. Marriages can get dissolved because of that. Because you go in 2 different paths. Now, I wouldn't break up a marriage per se, or tell someone to leave a marriage if everything is good. There's a difference of, one wants to convert and the other doesn't, even if they're a pagan, right? It doesn't really matter, right? There will be an issue how to raise kids. That's a whole topic in of itself, what to do. But if that's the only reason a person would consider getting divorced, I wouldn't tell people to do it. I do know someone, I don't know the story, so I can't say, but I do know someone who said, was in the process of conversion. Wife didn't want to convert. He says the best thing he ever did. The best thing he ever did is go through conversion. But he said, he lost his spouse. He lost his spouse and it was very painful. Probably still is painful. Right? So he said, converting is an important thing. If a person really wants to convert. But he said, you got to think about the ramifications also. Even though it's so important, who says, you give up your spouse, especially if there aren't, major issues. I had somebody that, had major issues with their spouse. They ended up getting divorced. Okay. I know someone else gave their husband an ultimatum. Like, either you convert or I'm out. Again, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't do that if all things being equal. Because there's no reason to get divorced, then why would you do it? You gotta say, but it's so important for me to convert. I get it. But think about what you're giving up. If you're gonna tell me there are problems, not fixable, and I was thinking about it anyway, getting divorced, different issue. Right? I'm not a marriage therapist here, but in that case, what's the biggest problem you're gonna have? If you have kids, how to raise them? That would be the biggest problem. Well, one of the biggest problems. I know somebody, told me many times. He became a Noahide, came out of Christianity. His wife was a Bible thumper. A lot of kids, 6 kids, 7 kids, whatever it is, and you just get made fun of all the time. Bad enough that other people, family members, especially if they're Bible thumper, is going to give you a hard time. Your own spouse belittles you, totally belittles you. He said he was going through hell, absolute hell. He didn't get divorced. Right? She wanted to go to church. She didn't. Whatever, different things. Kids were another issue. What to do and this and that. Right? What happened? What happened in the end? She came around. And I'm not going to say that always happens. Right? I'm not going to say it always happens, but, you have to have a mutual understanding. And that mutual understanding is, you want to do this? I'm not going to stop you. Right? If you ever change your mind, it's one thing. Right? It's another thing to ridicule the other person. That's unbearable. You have to have a mutual understanding. You don't have a mutual understanding, it's over. Right? Nobody wants to get belittled over here. And feel like they're not worth anything because they don't believe in JC. Or, they're not going to be, they're not going to be a Muslim or whatever. Right? There will be an issue with kids. True. There will be that issue how to raise them. Right? That is very true. Right? But, all things being equal, it's not if there are serious problems, that's a different issue. If there are religious problems, you got to figure out a way to work them out. Respectfully. If you can't work them out respectfully, then there's going to be friction, tremendous friction. You cannot discuss it. Not going to help. Right? You can try and get around it, but it's going to come back eventually. So you're going to say, but what if you're in this situation? What if you're in this situation, the other spouse is adamant and they don't want to change? Okay. No one says they have to change. No one says they're obligated to change, even if they're a pagan. Right? Even if they're a Christian. No one says they want to bring the kids to church. Right? So you have to have a discussion. Say, listen, I don't want it, whatever. You have to come up with some sort of compromise. But if it's going to be to the point, and I didn't tell this person to do this, if it's going to be to the point, this guy was going out of his mind. He still loved his wife. She still loved him, but, she was influenced by her siblings, and parents who were major Bible thumpers. And they just put all kinds of pressure on this guy. Tremendous amount of pressure. Now, who wants to live in a marriage like that? He asks me questions from time to time. Right? We're still in contact. He told me. It took a while. It took years. It took a number of years. He tried to explain certain things. She didn't want to hear it, this, that. Something happened and opened her eyes. You know what they say? Now they live happily ever after. Okay. It doesn't necessarily going to be like that. Right? But if there's that kind of friction, you got to agree to disagree. And you got to figure out some compromise how you're going to live and how you're going to raise your kids. Because if you don't do that, it'd be an absolute disaster. Someone's going to make fun of the other person. If someone does it, they're joking, this and that's one thing. But if they're actually ridiculing them for their beliefs, on a regular basis, it's kind of hard to take. Right? So, so my answer was, wait it out, let's see. But, you got to work out some level of compromise. He says, when his spouse got on that topic and this and that, she went ballistic. So I was like, you just wouldn't bring it up. But sometimes you might say things anyway about, what he does and, what his practical, beliefs and what he does. And a little bit, that's hard to take. I think if anybody, it'd be hard to take. It's one thing you disagree. Okay, you can disagree a lot. Good. But to ridicule the other person, make the other person feel like a piece of dirt, that's you're in that relationship. You've been married for a while. That's hard to take. That is very hard to take. Now, again, spouses can have disagreements. They can speak out their agreements. They go through mediation. They go through therapy, different things, right? But even in such a case, I had somebody, took him 3 years, more, 3 years till he finally heard what I had to say. Whatever, former student of mine. Finally was able to hear that, listen, your wife does not want to be an Orthodox Jew. Your kid's a different issue. She doesn't want to be an Orthodox Jew. You're not going to be a conservative Reform Jew. I said you have one of two choices. Choice is, either you become a Noahide, and stay as a Noahide, or you convert, you divorce your wife. The rabbi, can't do that. I can't afford it. Can't afford to divorce my wife. Okay. Right? He didn't want to divorce his wife. He wasn't interested. But it took 3 years. It took 3 years to finally internalize the message. To say that it's either this way or that way. Now again, I spoke about it a lot. So it's not like anything new, but finally hit the person. And they finally saw what the ramifications are. So now he's big time Noahide. Okay. It's gatherings every so often, people where he lives, whatever it is. Does it sort of burn inside that he's not a Jew? Probably. Because that's his passion. That's what he wants. But he's not going to do it at the expense of his wife or his kids. Right? So, all things being equal, there's no reason. If you can get along, and you get along well, so why do it? But, again, someone's going to say what? Someone's going to say, it's so a part of me, I can never not do. I'll tell you cases. I'll tell you a bad case. A bad case. I had somebody, student of mine, former student of mine. They downsized their house. They moved in walking distance of a synagogue. Kids before conversion are in a Jewish school, which not all Jewish schools will take kids before conversion. This is what happened. Okay. Now what happened? What happened? At some point after they moved, something happened and the husband says, I can't do it. Something, whatever. There was an certain event that happened. And he says, I can't do it. I can't go through with it. Now, what's the problem over here? The problem, first of all, they're married, right? Second of all, they just downsized everything. And they moved within walking distance of a synagogue. And their kids are in school to boot. And they're been accepted by the rabbinical court. And now the husband comes along and says, I can't do it. So what happened? So the wife says, I can't turn back. There's nothing to turn back to. This is the path we're going on. This is the path, our kids are in school, right? This is the path. This is where they're holding, and he gave up at the end. Horrific. He gave up at the end. So what happened? She divorced him. She didn't want to, right? She's telling me the story. She didn't want to. She thought she had no choice because she'd already gone too far. She had nothing to go back to. Now, he's not willing to be an Orthodox Jew, so that's it. Rabbinical court's not going to convert them, right? So he's out of the picture. They converted. Now, someone could ask the question, if a person sees truth, and they come to truth, so why would God do that? Why would God break up the family? Does spiritual truth ruin marriage? It can't, because you're not holding the same place anymore. So why did God put you together anyway? I can't answer that, right? But they were supposed to be put together to have these kids, right? And a number of these kids, not the older ones, right? But a number of these kids, became Jewish, and the father not. Mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. That's a huge test. It's huge. But but this woman's strong as fire. And she's like, I can't turn back. She didn't have any reason to get divorced. As far as I understand. Everything was good, more or less. But what happened? She had gone to the point where she can't go back. She can't go back and be a pagan. Right? She's not going to do that. Or go for a less stronger conversion. That we don't recognize. Reformer, conservative, progressive, whatever you want to call it. She wasn't willing to do that. They've already adapted this way of life for a number of years. Heard all my bad jokes, made fun of the Seahawks. They hate Tom Brady. What can you do? I grew up in Boston, so I can say that, right? So, okay, they withstood a lot. You could ask the question. Why did God do this? Because hey, he didn't do it. She could have stayed married to him. She could have. So again, in the bigger scheme of things, we don't understand it, right? All right, now, they happen to live in Israel now, very happy here, but, things worked out the way they did. The joke is we plan, God laughs. That's the joke. We think, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. We have no idea. We have no idea what today's going to bring. You have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. But at the end of the day, you're holding on to God like a light, with a life preserver. Like you're drowning in the ocean, which, some people are. So you're hanging on to him for dear life. That's what you're doing. Essentially what you're doing. But, let's say he put you in this situation. You didn't do it to yourself. Let's say. It's hard. Definitely hard. Right? So someone could ask, they said, in all this turmoil, I was on 2 continents in 3 years. With 6 kids. With 5 kids and then 6 kids. I had another child here. So most educators would say you got to be out of your mind. Totally out of your mind. Right? I asked a lot of questions before I came back. I was only gone 3 years. Right? 3.5 years, whatever. They said, if your kids are intact, it's a miracle. And my oldest was going into high school at the time. So, if I didn't get her in high school, that would have been it. So my wife made a pilot trip, and as they say, the rest is history. Right? Did it go smoothly? Oh, no. Let's not make a mistake. It did not go smoothly. Right? A lot of bumps along the way. But being on 2 continents in 3 years, that's kind of hard. As I tell people, if people think the grass is greener, they speak to me first. Right? It depends what a person's going back for. If I would have done proper research, I probably never would have left. But okay, God has his ways. So you're going to say, well, how'd you get through it? How'd you deal with it? I'll tell you, I had better days. I had worse days. Right? I had days I didn't want to get out of bed. So you can say, well, you suffer from depression. Some have depression. I get slammed left and right. Totally slammed. Couldn't do what I wanted to do. Maybe it's not your time, and maybe it's this, and maybe it's that. You're right. But every single thing, everything I touched was bad. Right? Seemingly bad. That's what it was. Right? 100%. 100%, that's what it was. But I didn't give up. Right? It's not like something I gave up. Still want to do what I wanted to do. Very good. But at the same time, it was a struggle day in and day out. Sometimes better, sometimes not. It's hard. I'm not going to say not. But, like I said, recently, I've had a certain epiphany. Why? I can't really say. Right? Again, that's the purpose of opening up this group. That's exactly the purpose. Right? How to deal with this on a regular basis. A person does something, doesn't go. Right? It doesn't go, and it's hard. And it gets harder. Right? It doesn't get easier, it gets harder. Right? So, a person could say, come on. Like, what does God want over here? Right? Not like I don't believe. Why are you getting tossed around? Could be for any number of reasons. Right? But at the end of the day, he's the one in charge. He's the one calling the shots. And a person can go through trials and tribulations for a long time or short time. Depends what it is. But you see, you also have to see where you were, where you are now. Connect the dots. Not every decision we make is the right decision. That's why you need that story. You need a rabbinic authority in your life to know what to do. But it doesn't mean that decision is gonna make everything good. It's gonna make everything easy. This is what you have to do. Right? You're playing poker. Give an example. You're playing poker. And you're dealt with a bunch of low number cards, no pairs, no matches. What do? You fold. You totally fold. So let's say someone's been given that. That's the hand you've been dealt with. A poor hand. What do? You could fold. Right? Someone here asked, and I'm the same thing. What if you're the only one family seeking truth? Seeking truth. You're right. It's a lonely path. It's a lonely path. I'm going to say it again. It's a lonely path. I got my own family, not interested. My wife's got her own family, not interested. Not interested. There's been antagonism. There have been things said. So sometimes the only thing you can do is damage control. Right? People make fun. People say things. You're the only one? Okay. Right? But you're part of the Jewish community. It's a whole different thing. You're not the only one. You're joining with everybody else. Right. Family's family. I get it. It's painful. I'm not going to say not. But I can tell you, some people will say, well, doesn't time heal all things? It can still be painful. The question is, how painful will it be? So I can tell you personal experience. Certain things that would bother me to no end, today I just go bink. Some things may sting. Someone said something to me a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. It stung. They didn't mean it, but it stung. So a little bit surprised how much it stung. Right? But okay, moved on. And give it a second thought. So you can say, well, it must be on a high level. I'm not saying that. Question is how you view it. But people make fun, people say that you're right. People call you names, people can curse you. I've had it. Gone through it. Still go through it to a certain extent. Right? Doesn't mean it's not painful. Right? At the same time, you're right. People aren't going to listen. 100%. So I think one of the trials or one of the things I'm doing in this world, my soul is doing in this world, could be totally wrong, right? But I think part of it is the fact that I can help a lot of people, but I can't help myself, right? And that's common. It's like you're in your own what do you call it? You're in your own prison. So you get all this great advice, this and that. You can't do anything for yourself. Can't help anything for yourself. You're right? Right? Is my family ever going to listen? Probably not. I've had some family members, over the years, listen to some of the things and this and that. But essentially, are they going to listen? No. I'll give an example. I was a relative that came here with their kids at a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, whatever. Went to a hotel to meet them. We're having a whole conversation. We're having, a conversation with, relatives of mine. And someone makes a comment, says, don't convert them. You know what that means? Not that they're going to convert, they're not Jews. Don't make them like you. Don't make them fanatics like you. I said, I can't. It's impossible. So the person said, why? Why is it impossible? I said, I'm not talking about religion. I said, actually, I'm talking about sports. Basketball, actually, if you want to be specific. I said, that's a topic of conversation. You think I'm trying to convert them? So I wanted to say, yeah, I would try it, but not in front of you. I'll do it behind your back, a different way. That's what someone said. What are you afraid of? Where's your open-mindedness? You have a normal conversation. Don't convert them. Don't let them be like you. All right, next thing you know, they're going to make blessings and wear a black hat. Sure. That's going to be the next thing. You're going to start praying 3 times a day. No, I don't think so. So what are you worried about? I understood what they meant. You don't think it's painful to hear such a thing? Be put down? Chalk it up to experience. If I can chalk it up and say, yeah, that's what happened to me. Way back when. We're not even talking 20 years ago. No, more. Definitely more. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Someone can say that. Today, anything goes. Right? They're going to say, why should be shocked at such a thing? I'm not saying I am. Right? But that's a mean thing to say. This is everything you stand for. Yeah, I would love to convert them. That's what I should have said. How have I they keep Torah mitzvahs? I would get slammed for that also. Okay, you know what? I just laughed it off. As I told them, I said, I'm not converting them. Speaking about basketball. So what are you worried about? I'm like, what are you worried about? I'm not speaking about religion at all. They're like, good. I know someone else's story. Tell you a recent story. A friend of my wife's has has a sister there. Whatever. Some of the, some of her sisters are more spiritual, less spiritual. Anyway, she got a nephew. The person has a nephew. Wanted to come to Israel. And he was searching. She got him hooked up to a Shabbaton. It was a great person doing outreach, with the Shabbaton, and person well known in Jewish outreach and whatever. And they went to the Shabbaton with her nephew. What happened? He loved it. He ends up, touring around Israel, goes back. And now, he's learning one-on-one with the rabbi now. And this sister is furious. Furious. She won't even speak to her sister now. She says, I told you, never get involved when it comes to religion. This is my son. Whatever, she went ballistic. Ballistic. Right? And now she goes with her son to people's houses for Shabbos. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe she'll become religious herself. She's really ticked off. Really, ticked off to the point she wants to speak to her sister now. But her sister said, what am I, she told my wife, what am I supposed to do? So Shabbos Aved, you got to return his, return him back. It's like returning a lost object, giving him his soul back. She can't look the other way. The repercussions, look at the repercussions here. I mean, eventually it'd be straightened out, I'm sure, at one point. She's not going to be mad forever. I mean, maybe she will, I don't know. Right? But what was she supposed to do? She got an obligation, try and bring him closer. He came, she set him up, and that was it. She's furious. This sister is furious. That's what I wanted, and she won't speak to her now. Ice cold. Ice cold. Isn't that pretty bad? Pretty bad. Right? So yeah, there is a certain level of tolerance. Some things. I can say people speak to me, family, I get tolerated till I say something. It's toleration. You know what that feels like? I'm sure some people know what it feels like. I don't care what you have to say. Nothing. Oh, but you got to suck up to them. What do they do? This, that. And they make fun of what you do. Oh, get off your soapbox. Someone told me. Save that for your classes. It's not going to work with me. Total rank down. Not like I said anything obnoxious. So you're going to say, but isn't that hard to hear from a parent, a sibling, niece, nephew, this, that. Isn't that hard? Especially, if you had a good relationship before. Yeah, it is. Not going to say not. What changes, though? I want to tell you what changes. My mentality. How I view it. It gets less sad as days go by. You know why? Because these people, biggest question they may have ever asked, I put ketchup or mustard on my hot dog. That's where they're holding. They're not holding by knowledge. They're not going to engage you, in questions about religion. They're not interested because they know they might lose. If a person had a good relationship before, so, it could be the relationship will stay to a certain extent. If a person had a bad relationship, yeah, then this makes it worse. Let's say someone had a sibling, they didn't marry, and you weren't really close to that sibling. This made it 10 times worse. So what do? No, they do. Can't acknowledge it. Plenty of things you can't do. But I would say like this, whatever a person's going to do, be consistent. Be consistent across the board. Don't pick and choose how you're going to answer and what you're going to do. Because if you do, they'll slam you. You should do this. You don't do it anymore. They'll slam you. Right? They'll totally slam you here. Again, so when I was contemplating writing this book, about people became religious. I interviewed somebody, and asked them, how did you become religious? As a Jew. And he said, that's not the question. The question is not why I became religious. The question is, why did my siblings become religious? We all saw the same thing. How come I changed and they didn't? Good question. Right? Anybody's siblings could see the same thing if they want. They don't want. They don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. They want to do whatever they want. Okay? Right? How many people are truly open-minded today? Nobody. I met one in the last 30 years. Person said, if I look into Judaism and I find out it's true, I have to change, I'm not going to do it. This person was into marriage. They're like, I'm not going to do it. Okay, he's honest. He's 100% honest. No one else is that honest. I've heard different things over the years. No one's that honest. And it's remarkable someone could say that. Everyone else says, you're in a cult, you're in this, you're in that. I go, do you know what a cult is? You know what it's like to be told you're in a cult? I said, I can leave at any time. No one's forcing me. No one's putting a gun to my head. Right? Go Google what a cult is. It's not a cult at all. We believe in truth. We got proof for it. This, that. You want to hear it? No. I still think it's a cult. Okay? Am I going to convince them? No. Am I going to waste my time trying to convince them? No. Certain things are painful. True. My wife and I by ourselves. Fight against the world. Right? Grew up similar, a lot of similar beliefs, different ways, and how did our marriage survive with all the trauma and everything else? Being told off by, siblings and family and this and that, right? That could put a tremendous strain on our marriage. 100%. So we did what we could. We did what we could. Compromise when we had to, if it was possible. Some things you can't compromise on. Certain things you can't do. So what do you do? What do? You get hit over the head. That's the only thing you can do. It's painful. I'm not going to say not. Today, 30 years later, it's a different ballgame. I'll be very careful what I open my mouth against. If I have to, I will. If not, I'll just let it go. I might be upset about it, but I'll just let it go. Why? There's no point. They're going to say, someone will say, well, these people, they curse me out all the time. Just tell them, I'm sick of listening to you. Okay, we disagree, fine. And what if they keep harping on it? So think of other things when they say it. Just deflect it. Just deflect it and say, you understand where they're coming from. I understand where my family's coming from. I grew up with them. So I know. But not based on knowledge. And they'll say, and they may say cruel things. But you know what? Now, a lot of years have gone by. I've got more knowledge. Put them in their place if I have to. Right? But you're going to say doing that, you're going to drive them away. Again, it depends on the relationship. I'll tell any, JITs out there, Jews in training, what's going to be the mark of this relationship? What do I mean? Imagine get together for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving coming up, let's say live in the States. Get together for Thanksgiving, you bring your own food. Because you're keeping kosher. Do not eat by, you don't eat by a sibling. We used to eat by them a lot or whatever. See what happens. Comes to food, people get offended. People get offended. Oh, I used to do this, you're holier than thou, this, that. Some people may respect it, maybe. Some people may feel, what's the word? They may feel, may feel embarrassed. I had someone tell me, well, can't you eat anything? I said, listen, I came. You should be happy I came. If you wanted to make it kosher, you could have. You didn't want to, okay. You're not going to make me feel bad because I can't eat anything. I mean, you could. You could. But, that makes you feel different. Makes you feel separate. Who wants to feel separate? Right? They're going to say, you did that, not me. We're the same. You changed. Okay? True. Very, very true. Right? But we're going to repeat the same thing. We're gonna repeat the same thing. Family can be an albatross. Family may go by the wayside. Just nothing to do. Might be painful. Again, depends on the relationship. It depends how strong a person's beliefs are. All right. It's like I said, it can be a lonely process. someone here mentions something better, for an Orthodox convert, stay single and never marry. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not gonna be, I won't say it's gonna be so easy to meet someone, but not impossible. I have a number of former students got remarried. Either they were, widows or got divorced. Right? It definitely happened. Definitely can happen. Is there discrimination? Yeah. Again, there are plenty of people who wouldn't want any of my kids in their family. Okay. So we could go also. Fine. I'm not offended by that because I know there's a reality. There's a reality. You say it's discrimination. Okay. You're right. I'm not saying it makes it right. But it exists. Does that mean someone who converts will never get remarried? Doesn't mean that. Some people say, I don't want to get remarried. Okay, it's a different issue. That's a different issue. Right? So someone here says, they're very supportive. Family's very supportive. Very good. A lot of families aren't. A Jew becomes religious. Grew up secular. I have a friend of mine. Parents totally cut him off. Totally cut him off. Father never saw his wife or his kids. Mother did. Would have to be open-minded. There are people that just goes against their grain. Totally cut this person off. Let him hang and dry. Hung him out to dry. That's tragic. That is tragic. Now, would I say that's what's going to happen? Not necessarily. Doesn't have to be. Right? I know some families, the whole family became religious. Okay? I know cases, some of them did, some didn't. Some became more religious, some less, whatever. Right? But I would say probably, especially if you're going into a different religion, if you got Bible thumpers and, or whatever, they're going to give you a hard time. Because they're not so open-minded. Totally not. Right? But it is, someone here says, sounds like an AA meeting. Yeah. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. But, what's the best type of therapy? And this is not what it is. Right? And that's not going to be the point, of this other group. I'm going to get off the ground. Right? The point is how seeing the bigger picture. And going through difficulty and hardship makes us who we are. That's what it does. I wouldn't be anywhere today if I didn't go through what I've gone through. I wouldn't be able to speak about it. I can speak about it in theory. It's not the same thing as if you've gone through it. Right? So make me kind of an expert over here. Different things. I've gone through it. A lot of different things. And a lot of it was hard. A lot of it was extremely hard. Plenty of things I'm going through now, extremely hard. But again, what's the difference? What's the difference? It's the way we view it. One thing to keep in mind. Is the fact, that a person can hold it against someone else. It's forbidden to hold a grudge. Not allowed to hold a grudge. We may have high standards. There are disappointments, right? We're going to speak about that also in this group. What do you do with disappointments? What do? You studied a lot for an exam, and you come in and you blank out. Happened to me a number of times. Studied my brains out and I froze. Happened. I shouldn't say many. Happened a few times. I can't even tell you how aggravating that is. But if a person's striving for perfection, they're perfectionist. It's hard. Someone you expected something from somebody, and they let you down, and you're supposed to be very close. That's also disappointing. Right? When it comes to this is like what we stand for. It's what we live for. And have people make fun of it, and it's hard. Being part of a Jewish community is crucial because then they become like family. Like adopted. I was adopted, first community I lived in. Or second community, really. Second community, that I lived in. A lot of families used to have us a lot for Shabbos, for festivals, different things. I got to see how they did it, how they raised their kids. And they were like family. That's what happens. Your family sort of, again, may go by the wayside. Not saying it will happen. Some are more supportive, some less supportive. But I would think, because there's such a divergence of opinion, and people get heated up and this and that, there's a lot more disappointment. a lot more. Right? It's true. You want to show people the beauty of this. They don't want to hear it. Not only that, they make fun of it. They say, come on, doesn't really matter. You pull the bones out of the fish in a certain way on Shabbat. Come on, you really think God cares? If you're a toilet, I had someone tell me this. Someone I grew up with. I knew many years. I saw them once I was back in Boston. And they told me, I heard that Orthodox Jews don't rip toilet paper on Shabbos. I said, that's true. They said, I'll ask you. You're Orthodox. I said, right. So they asked me, is it really true that Orthodox Jews don't rip toilet paper on Shabbos? I said, yes. So he said, so what do? I said, either they rip it ahead of time. I said, or they use tissues, right? They open up a thing of tissues, make sure they're not stuck together. Certain tissues may be stuck together. You got a problem taking them out. But let's say, regular bag of tissues. I've used a lot of them today, right? Here we go. Here are my tissues here, right? Regular thing of tissues. Pull one after the other. That's it. This person was horrified. They were like so disgusted. So disgusted. Like, ew. Like, that's gross. I said, you ever been to India? I said, some places in India, they have a hole in the ground in a jug of water. That is gross. This, I don't know what they were grossed out about. I don't know, Kleenex, regular tea. I don't know. I don't know what they were grossed out about. I said, that is gross. Totally gross. Well, so why is it? Why does the person think that? It could be gross because of what they associate it with. I'm not saying the act itself. I'm not gonna be gross over here, right? Not gonna talk about the act itself, right? But what it means. Like someone once told me, I don't like the way you dress. I'm like, what's the matter with the way I dress? White and black, white and with pinstripes, all pinstripes, this, that. So the only difference is I wear a suit every day and a hat and a jacket, and you don't. And I have yarmulke on my head and I wear tzitzis. So what are they offended by? What are people offended by? Because they say, you're saying I'm not good enough. I didn't open my mouth this time. I didn't say anything. Right? But they feel they're being downgraded. They feel that you're looking down on them. They go, you don't even think I'm Jewish. I go, is your mother Jewish? They said, yeah, so you're Jewish. No, you don't want to believe like me? Okay. That's your choice. But I would say, before you throw your religion, in the garbage, I would, maybe find out what it means, before you do that, have knowledge behind you. But, they feel they're being judged. Right? They just want to be left alone. They want to do what they want. They want to give in to their own desires. True. So, why do the secular here in Israel hate religious people? For that reason. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to say you can't go to the beach on Shabbos. They don't want to hear, you can't run buses on Shabbos to go to the mall or do other things. They don't want to hear that. That's called religious coercion. Or as we say here in Hebrew, kfiat datit. That's religious coercion. And if you have religious people in the government, I would agree, it'd be a lot worse here. True. Very, very true. Right? But what's the fundamental point? The whole goal of this country was to uproot religion. They wanted a country of Jews, that had nothing to do with Judaism. Well, it doesn't go that way. And if it wouldn't be for us, you're right. It would be anyone, who's been in Israel. You go to Jerusalem, it's totally different than any other city. Right? Jerusalem, Bnei Brak, any of these other religious places. You go to Tel Aviv, it's free for all. Right? You go to certain places on the coast, it's, mostly secular Jews. And they'll just look down upon religious Jews. Oh, this, that. I'm not saying everybody, but they don't know anything. But the only thing they do know is to hate us. Because we're bloodsuckers in the government. We take money, we demand this, we demand that, all kinds of things. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Right? Someone points out it's better to be abandoned by a family living with them. You're right. Living with them is going to be really hard. Right? Really hard. Right? Let's say a person moves and they're by you for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's also hard. Also hard. I always used to say, I have patience for about a week. I think it's got a little bit bigger than that, but, a little bit longer than that. But okay, I can have certain things for a certain amount of time. And then I get tired. I get tired of hearing about stupidity. I get tired of it. And I'm going to be honest. One of my personal pet peeves. So like a week will go by, I can tolerate. 2 weeks go by, it's already another issue. People talking about the same stupid thing. Looking at wasted lives. My opinion, according to the Torah. Okay? It's hard to see, it's hard to hear. You gotta have patience, but yeah, being around that all the time, or most of the time, that is really hard. That is really hard. So keep in mind one thing. And the one thing is that with all the pain that's associated, the reward is immense. Immense. I told this story before. It's a good story, though. A student, my Rebbe, told him that, his father-in-law, very wealthy person, extremely wealthy person. So his father-in-law tells his daughter, listen, I'm willing to give you all this money, set you up for life. You and your husband, I'm willing to give you all this money. One condition. What's the one condition? You don't listen to this Rabbi Sternbuch anymore. That's the condition. He told me this. Rabbi told me this story. So I said, so what'd they do? He said, they didn't listen. They still listen to me. Good. But what they give up? They don't have an easy life where they are. This could have helped them a lot, tremendously. They'd be set for life. You can't do it. 100%, you can't do it. Right? He's the one guiding them. He's the one, saved their lives in so many different ways. I'll save myself also. I owe him everything. I always tell him that, and sort of brushes me off. But look, if someone were to say, and if I listen to what he says, it goes against what someone believes. They're not going to like it. 100%, they're not going to like it. So what? It can be painful, okay? Some people I can't even mention his name around them. They'll just start cursing him out left and right. Because I don't like some of the things he told me and I listened to. Okay? So what are you supposed to do with that? Suck it up, as Whoopi Goldberg would say. That's what you have to do. You can't answer. You can't say anything. We're going to say, Rabbi, didn't you ever slip up? Yeah, I did. Going to admit it. I'll admit it here live. I said things I probably shouldn't have said over the years. It's kind of just, you get tired of hearing things. Anyway, you got to show all this respect and they just demolish you. Say things that you never say. Right? It's hard. Especially if you're me. You got a big mouth. It's hard to keep your mouth shut. But that, I think another thing my soul is doing here is that when you're disrespected for what you believe in, and you get made fun of this, that, and the other thing, and you don't say anything back, or you can't say anything back, whatever you say, doesn't matter. So you don't bother, you don't answer. That's the best thing. You don't answer. No matter what they say, you don't answer. Right? Better look stupid in their eyes than, in God's eyes. Would I have what to say? Oh, yeah. Plenty what to say. I'm not going to listen. It's okay. Right? But at the end of the day, isn't that a hard challenge? And stop in everything you believe in. I'll take it one step further. And you got to say, again, this happened to me. A number of years ago, there were 4 righteous people killed. Same neighborhood where I learn a number of times a week. Whatever. Killed, butchered, right? Righteous people. Someone makes a comment and says, no different than the students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is getting, the Gemara says in Brachos, Rabbi Akiva is getting his flesh carved out. And the student said, this is the merit for learning Torah. And he said, I was always bothered by this verse. Right? We say in the first paragraph of the Shema, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your possessions. Let's go back to soul. So Rabbi Akiva held, he was waiting for the chance to be able to give up his soul, sanctify God's name. He was killed by the Roman. So as they're covering up his body, he's giving over this whole sermon. So he said, Rabbi Adkam, this is what it means. He said, yeah. Right? So this person said, these four people, look what they're, look at all the Torah learning they did and look what their end was. So you're telling me you understand God and how he works. You're right. That doesn't make sense. Very hard to understand. True? Very true. But someone just made it in a despicable way. Just like to, a little bit of a dig. I probably changed worlds for not opening my mouth. When I heard that, I just let it go. I could have said a million things. And I would have been justified. Tell this person off. You know what? I didn't. I knew it was a waste of time. Oh, but did that sting? Yeah. If they would have said it today, it would also sting. Not as much. But that's, to me, that's one of the hardest things. Is that they can say whatever you want and they don't care what you say. They won't even listen to what you have to say. Or someone will say, come on, life after death, explain that to me in 30 seconds. Now, let's say I can speak fast enough to do it. Within 5 seconds, I tell you to stop. Not interested. So, my answer was here. I'm going to send you a link. You want to watch it? Watch it. You don't want to watch it? Okay. That was my answer. There's no question. There's absolutely no question here. So, at the same time, we got to pick our battles. And when we're quiet, we change worlds. We have the ability to change worlds. Is it easy to be quiet? No. Because they're making fun of something very personal. Right? Something you've given over your life to do, to keep. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing when someone is crass and they don't care. It's hard. I'm telling you, that's probably what my soul's doing here also. Right? It's to be able to hear something like that and not do anything, not say anything. Even what you say, it's not going to matter. Totally not going to matter. Right? So, again, I'm not going to say it's not hard, but it's gotten so much easier, over the years. Why? Because you have to, your mentality has to change. And that means God's the one in charge. He's putting them in your path for whatever reason. Right? And he wants you to work on character traits. Do they want you to be angry in such a case? No. We should scream out to ourselves. It's heresy, it's this, it's that. But you're not going to scream out. So it's not to deal with it. It's not to take it in stride and not say anything. But you're going to say it's not easy. You're right. There were times I got slammed. I knew I was going to get slammed when I opened my mouth. I felt I had an obligation to say something. Okay. So, it's one thing if I do it to myself. If I do it to myself, I get hammered, I got no one to blame. I did what I thought I had to do. And I knew what was going to happen. Right? But not be able to say anything with two hands tied behind your back and get slapped upside the head, that's hard. That's definitely hard. So what's the answer? What's the simple answer? Simple answer is God's putting them in your path in order for you to be strong. In order for you to be strong in Torah mitzvahs. That's what you're there for. Right? That's what they're there for. And the more we see that it's just a test, and the more we see that what they say really doesn't matter, because they don't have the knowledge, they're just saying whatever, the newspapers say or whatever. So we say that over and over and over again, that has an effect on the soul. That has an effect on how to deal with it. Right? You're going to say, it's still hard. Over time, you're not going to give it a second thought. It may sting here and there, but you're not going to give it a second thought. You know why? Because you've already been trained. You've already been trained how to look at it. You're going to say, but there's always a heart to brain disconnect. You're right. But you have to understand. You have to understand in the brain what it means and what it is. Once you understand that, then you got to work on putting it in your heart. True? It could be a lifetime of work. Doesn't have to be. Right? We have to learn, we have to see where it comes from, what's behind it, right? And put into practice. Put into practice what the Torah outlook is. Like I said, I've learned things the hard way. And okay, made mistakes along the way. So hopefully people won't make the same mistakes I made. Right? You nip it in the bud. You say what you have to say if you have to, and that's it. Even if it's a lonely process, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. A person needs to be strengthened in Jewish philosophy and how God runs the world and what he does. And we don't always understand, probably many times, we don't understand the measure for measure. But when you look in the bigger scheme of things, everything's there. We just, we don't see it. Many times we don't see it. Somebody here asked, someone asked before, I have a question about the Tzaddik Yanuka, right? This big Tzaddik, I saw actually a video of him being at Rachel's tomb. Yeah, happened to be, tremendously righteous. Someone asked me that he's the Mashiach. He hasn't revealed himself, so we don't know who the Mashiach is. We have no idea who the Messiah is. Could he be? I don't know. It could be. First of all, the Elijah the prophet hasn't come. Elijah the prophet hasn't come. One of the jobs of Elijah the prophet is to declare who the Messiah is. That's his job, right? So, could he be? Maybe. I don't know. Is he from the Davidic line? I don't know. Is he a Kohen or a Levite? I don't. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. Is he extremely righteous? Yeah. Yeah. For a number of things. Yeah. Unbelievable things. Who he is, what he's done. Could he be the Messiah? I have no idea. So you're going to tell me some people are saying he's the Messiah. Okay. Doesn't mean he is. Right? There's certain things you got to do to be the Messiah. So you're going to say, well, maybe he is. It just hasn't done it yet. Could be. Right? There's a Messiah, a spark of the Messiah in every generation. The only question is he going to reveal himself or not? So we've seen the last 2,000 years hasn't happened. We haven't deserved it. So it could be when we deserve it. If he's around, maybe he'll be. Maybe. I wouldn't go that far to crown him. Definitely wouldn't go that far. I'm not saying he's not righteous. I'm not saying he doesn't know a heck of a lot and different things that he does. Right? But say he's the Messiah, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go that far. Someone asks, what if we don't say something to defend yourself, but defend someone lying? That you can do. Someone's lying about Torah mitzvahs, that you can do. Right? You can even put up posts again, on it saying this person's not, distorting the truth. Some people think it's a mitzvah to call everybody out that does that. I don't necessarily think that. You do when you have to do it. But if you're speaking for truth, you're speaking about what the Bible says, what the Torah says, you have nothing to worry about. It's not Lashon Hara. It doesn't matter what they say, right? This is what we have to keep in mind. It does not matter one iota what anybody's going to say, right? If they curse, it's their choice. They can curse. They can blaspheme. They can be heretical. They can do all kinds of things. It's not my fault. I said what the Torah says. Oh, someone's going to say the Torah's anti-non-Jew. Torah's anti-pig. Torah's anti-homosexuals and lesbians and all that. True. Torah is. I believe in the Torah. So that they're going to say, so you're homophobic. Okay, so I believe what the Torah says. I understand why it says it. You want to learn about it or you just want to make fun, right? Obviously, they don't want to learn about it. They just want to say it's home. I don't have to listen to anything. Okay, right? Doesn't matter. That's not putting a stumbling block in front of them. We said that before. If they're going to say, they're going to curse and blaspheme and this and that, I have to worry about it. I have to worry about it. Right? Now, does that mean I should answer them? Not necessarily. Sometimes you might have to. I would agree. You might have to answer them. But a lot of times, there's a mitzvah, say nothing. And someone on a constant basis tells me, just keep your mouth shut. That's what you got to do. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's very hard. Right? But at the end of the day, you can rail against somebody that is misrepresenting Torah, 100%. 100% Lashon Hara. You're guarding other people from listening to someone they shouldn't listen to. Right? That's totally permissible. Right? No question. And again, whatever their reaction is, doesn't matter. That's not putting a stumbling block. They could curse. They curse you, curse God, curse it. Okay, it's their choice. You don't want them to do that, but it doesn't matter. You don't know what the reaction is going to be. And maybe even if you do, they have free choice to say it or not. So what difference does it make? Right? Why should I be worried? Putting a stumbling block. If you're defending Torah, what the Torah says, whatever they do with the information, whatever they say, is not your problem. And if they ask you other things, so you answer them, if you can answer them. If you don't know the answer, okay, say, listen, not sure what the answer is, let me look it up and this and that. And, they'll see that you're honest. They'll see that, you don't know everything. Not supposed to know everything, right? And things we don't know. So they may respect that, right? But sometimes it's a losing cause. It can very well be a losing cause, But, if you want to point out, well, Torah says like this, I had someone tell me who says it's right. Who says the Bible's true? Right? I made a comment, someone said something. And I said, well, Torah says differently. And they're like, I don't care what Torah says, who says it's true? Oh, you want to go into proofs? No. So, I just want to say, well, you're using that as criteria. You're right. Again, most of this, I would say, is probably 100% a waste of time. Probably. To answer, conversations go nowhere. Imagine you're speaking to a missionary. What does a missionary do? They say all these things. And now you comment, well, that can't be true because of this. Oh, great question. What about this? Then they go on to something else, but they don't answer your question. That's the same thing. They say, wow, I got real information. Want to hear it? No. They just go on to something else. They'll make fun of something. Oh, do you really believe in it? Yeah, I do. Want to know why? No. You gotta see why they ask a question, why they say what they say. Right? A lot of times it's better, again, we want to show them the light, we want to bring them closer, but guess what? There are times it's better not to say anything. That's just the reality. You're just gonna make it worse. You're gonna say, yeah, but maybe that'll open their eyes, maybe. But again, most people are not open-minded. They're not willing to hear the other side. Most people I deal with that are, JITs or converts, the last line of defense of not believing JC is true is going to, Rabbi Tovia Singer's website, listening to some of his stuff. That's like the last resort, because why? Because you're going to give up JC. And you give up JC, it's like, they're going to tell you you're going to fry in hell forever. True? Yeah. I mean, not that it's true, but, that's the hardest thing to give up. But if you believe he's not true, then it doesn't matter. Right? But how many people, in this process, or they're thinking this and that, how many people got to look at the other side? Very few. They'll just keep being ignorant in their own things. They're never going to look into it. It's their choice. 100% their choice. Okay? But people that are going to, they'll get to the truth. They will absolutely get there. Because they want to hear the other side. Now, once you hear the other side, it's pretty compelling. Pretty compelling. So, yeah. Like we said, I think it's, for the most part, a lot of these arguments go nowhere. Because they're not listening. They don't care. Imagine you're the youngest in the family. They're never going to listen to you anyway. Right? So, even if you disagree and say, wow, I got great proof. You want? No. I just want to do what I do. Don't say anything. That's hard to take. So person have to make a choice. You really want to have contact with these people or not? Right. Family member once asked me, did you tell people to cut off ties with family? I said, not necessarily. Sometimes necessary. Sometimes it'll happen. Right? Do I advocate it? No, unless you have to. Unless it's toxic. If it's toxic, yeah. Then what do you need it for? It's like you need another hole in the head. Right? You don't need it. Would I say absolutely 100% everyone should ditch their family? No. Certainly not. If need be, that should happen. Right? It depends. Depends on the situation. Yeah, I say I got very far here, per usual. So I guess we're going to continue this next week. So it'll be chapter 2, Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 2, Mishna 13, part 10. So we're going to do this next week, same time. Anyone anyone who has any questions, you can find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for when this group gets formed, because it's probably going to get formed shortly. And then we're going to, really take it off and, cover a lot of different things. So anyway, I'm going to sign out. Wish everyone a good